Life's like a movie, but you don't see it cut. I gave my life to the pen because I believe in trust. I can get my niggas on if I keep it up. I think about my twin whenever I'm counting up. Cause all this money never amount to us. But cash rules everything around me. Cream, dope. Get the money.
What's good, y'all? What's the Numbers TV? It's your boy Po. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And like a video if you appreciate the content that Po and What's the Numbers I provided. Today we back on the profile piece. This one is on Melly and Mook. In this video we're going to talk about their early years coming up in Brooklyn. Then we will speak about their crew's rise in popularity through social media. After that, we're going to break down the details of the drive-by shooting that ended up taking Melly's life. Then the focus will be on Mook, who according to authorities will end up seeking revenge for his brother's death. And finally, we'll end the story with an update on Mook and where he's currently at today. Melvin and Marvin Pippins are two twin brothers from Brooklyn. Growing up in the Marlboro projects will be rough sometimes, but it could also be fun, as there's always something to do, good or bad, in the P's. Melly came off as the brother that cared more about getting fly, getting to the money, compared to Mook, who had a more rough around the edges look to him, but I'm sure was still on a paper chase. Melly will be the first of the two to really gain some popularity online around late 2013 with the Bread Gang, which was a crew out of Brooklyn that was gaining some attention on Instagram for their flashy lifestyle. Melly was one of the faces of the Bread Gang, which also had a few rappers down with them. A few freestyles and music videos will be released online by the Bread Gang, and that was one of the first times people noticed who Mook was, because although Melly didn't rap, Mook did, and was featured in a few of those videos. Now back in 2013, 2014, and 2015, Instagram was still at its peak in terms of influencing certain things that was going on in the streets. A lot of people who were living a fast or quote-unquote illegal lifestyle would post their everyday movements for the world to see, with the hope of going viral, or at least getting some people to take notice. Melly and the Bread Gang would be no different, as a lot of people were drawn to their pictures and videos on social media, showing them living good, driving fancy cars, taking trips, and wearing designer clothes. And for some reason, people always tend to notice faster when it's a group doing their thing instead of just a single individual. Melly was one of the standout members of the Bread Gang and came off as funny and likable, which is why when he ended up getting killed while sitting in his car with a female in October 2015, it caught a lot of people by surprise. Although Melly had some gang ties and was definitely in the streets, he just didn't give off the vibe of a bad, shady, or grimy individual that people would be actively looking to bring harm his way, which is exactly what ended up happening. From my knowledge, nobody ever got arrested for Melly's death, but according to the feds, Mook had an idea who he thought was responsible for killing his brother. And in December of the same year, they say he went out seeking revenge and ended up killing Sean Estad Pert, who was a member of another crew out of Brooklyn called Real Right. Estad was shot 6 times while sitting in his car on the street in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. For the next 5 years, Mook would be free living his life. He was still dealing with the loss of his brother, but was getting by nonetheless. That was until February of 2020, when a federal indictment against the 5'9" Brims would be unsealed. Mook would be included in that indictment and was charged of racketeering conspiracy for agreeing to commit crimes on behalf of the gang, including drug trafficking, identification and access device fraud, as well as multiple acts involving murder. The murder the feds had him on the hook for was the one of Real Right's S-Dot that I mentioned earlier. Although the cops weren't able to locate Mook at the time the indictment was released, eventually they got their hands on him and presented their case against him at trial in April of 2023. After the prosecution presented his case, which had numerous informants pointing the finger at Mook, Mook's lawyers decided that it would be in their best interest to admit that Mook killed S-Dot, but the reason was to avenge his brother Melly's death and not in furtherance of the gang. His lawyers felt if Mook admitted to the shooting, maybe it would spare him a mandatory life sentence. But unfortunately for them, it didn't work, after the jury found him guilty of murder and aid of racketeering. Mook now faces a mandatory life sentence, as there's no parole in the federal system. Mook was only 32 years old at the time of the guilty verdict. But yo, it's What's the Numbers TV. This is a quick profile piece on Marvin and Melvin Pippins, Melly and Mook, Mook and Melly, you know what I'm saying, Bread Gang, 5'9" Brim, Coney Island, you know, all that good stuff, you know what I'm saying. Now, they was beefing with allegedly Jeezy Moolah and them crew Real Right. You know, Jeezy Moolah went and got a big S-Dot chain once S-Dot had got killed, you know, in remembrance of him. They talk about S Dot all the time in their music after and their Instagram. You know, he was like a popular member within the Real Right crew. Now, the feds said he didn't have nothing to do with Melly's death because he was in California at the time. They said got records of him being in California at the time of Melly's death. He didn't have nothing to do with it. But you know how sometimes it go in that tick for tack. If they can't get you, they get your man. Sometimes you know how it go. Now, Mook could rap. He was down with the Bread Gang. Bread Gang was doing their thing for those few years. Even after Bread Gang kind of like, you know, stopped moving together as a unit as much. You know, Mook was still around. He was free all the way up until 2020. So, you know, Melly got killed in 2015. So he had 5 years. He was still running around. You know, the 5'9s and all that was doing their thing. If you remember that the indictment was some of the dudes that was messing with Cardi B, I think had a part of the indictment when they attacked the bartenders and all that. Like, this was all intertwined. So, like, they was definitely moving around. A lot of people knew who they was. Now a bunch of them is in jail. You know what I'm saying? They got hit with that indictment. Mook was part of that indictment. They had a few indictments after that, like superseding ones. A lot of them is in jail right now. Some of them is home. So, you know, they still running around doing their thing. Now, as far as Melly and Mook, as far as Mook's trial, from what people telling me, it was a bunch of rats at his trial, you know, pointing the finger at him, you know, laying out the details of the situation to the feds and the jury. So that caused Mook to decide to take the stand on his own trial and basically admit to shooting and killing S Dot, but letting him know it was because he had, like, you know, blood in his eyes because his brother getting killed, and he felt it was them that had something to do with it, I guess. And, you know, trying to, like, basically, you know, have some type of leeway so he wouldn't get life in the feds, which is mandatory when you get convicted of a murder with the feds, especially the one in aid of racketeering and all that. So, but it didn't work because, you know, the feds laid it out that, you know, like I said, S Dot wasn't around. So it was basically a killing that didn't need to happen in their eyes. And, you know, and that's, you know, how a lot of people feel. So, you know, it's fucked up both ways. You know, he lost a brother. He didn't know how to act. He was out here hurt people. And, you know, it's fucked up that S Dot had to lose his life. You know, young kid. S Dot was only like 22 years old, if I'm not mistaken. You know what I'm saying? He had his whole life ahead of him. So, you know, that whole situation is sad. But, you know, in Brooklyn, these stories come a dime a dozen. Now, like I said, as far as people taking a stand, they said it was a big homie from Coney Island, from Marlboro. They actually sent me the picture with him, with the Melly sweatshirt on, with the hoodie on, you know, the Recipes Melly hoodie. You know, a lot of people knew who he was. And they saying he got on the stand and basically told it all on Mook. Now, you know, I got his real name. I got his street name. Shout out to my guys, you know, everybody that, you know, that opened the door and told me some, you know, gave me some information as far as, like, to help this story be made. I've been wanting to do a story on Melly because, like I said, I was in tune with Bread Gang when they was popping. Melly was definitely one of the main, you know, dudes that was on social media doing his thing. And once he passed away, it kind of slowed down a little bit for them. But, you know, I wanted to wait and see what happened with Mook, being that that's his twin brother. So, like I said, man, it's a profile piece of Melly and Mook. This What's the Numbers TV. It's the only spot with a Melly and Mook profile piece. You ain't going to find this nowhere else because, you know, What's the Numbers TV, we really outside, we really in the streets. So, we got these stories coming for y'all. And on that note, I'm out of here, man. Polo, What's the Numbers TV. Peace.